Okay, so this is video number 2. We've now assembled the stand, and it's now attached by the underside to the stand. So it's all bolted in position, and it should be nice and sturdy. At the moment it's on the, I've just got it on wheels, not on the blocks. So at the moment we can quite easily turn this machine around very easily. So we're going to, first of all, we're going to identify all the parts here. So let's, for this video, let's just do an identification. So first of all, we've got the media bracket. This is where the roll will be mounted to and inserted and into the machine. We'll have more detailed videos on every section. This is just an overview of showing what everything is. Here we've got, obviously got our power supply. Here we've got a little trip switch. So if it doesn't go on when you turn it on, it's probably because this is in its trip position. So if you have no power, don't be alarmed, it's probably that. Or if when you turn it on, it doesn't come on, it could be because your emergency stop button is also on. So just make sure that is off. Each one of those will not allow the machine to turn on. So if you do have a problem, check those. Then you'll also find a cord that's coming out of here. Now, I've put a long one in here. Your one will be a lot smaller, but if you do need a longer one, you can take this back section off and replace it with a longer extension one that plugs straight into the board. Again, we can go into that in more detail, or that might be a specific question you ask us if you need to know a little bit more information than that. But there will be one connected when the machine comes. And to also just to make sure you know right now, it is an Ethernet cord, so it connects directly by Ethernet, which is a lot safer and a lot, when I say safer, it's actually a lot better for transfer rates than USB ports. So Ethernet port. If you're using a laptop, a lot of laptops these days don't have an Ethernet port. Just let us know, because we can also supply a USB to Ethernet adapter, which is still available to use if you are using a laptop and you don't have an Ethernet port. So that's the connection from the printer to your computer, Ethernet. Then we've got our 5 colors. We've got our white, black, cyan, magenta, and yellow. Easily marked, easy identified. Fill each one up. Again, we'll go with this a bit later, but make sure if you are filling up, especially the very first time, that do one at a time and don't get this order mixed up. Otherwise, we're going to have troubles with our sequencing. So we just want to make sure, if you're going to do it, put your lids up there, or just do one at a time so that you know exactly the correct order. So obviously, easy one there, that's inks. This one here is what releases the pinch rollers at the front. So when the media goes through the front, we want to pull this lever out, which will lift the pinch rollers. And when we push it in, so it's not pull down, it's push in hard, it'll bring down the pinch rollers at the front. And to release the pinch rollers when we're loading the film, we pull that out. Quite easy. Now let's just go around to the sides and the front. If we go to the right hand side and we open the door, one thing that we'll notice here is that we've got a container. This is where our waste ink goes. Now the waste ink goes in there, and that's when the discarded ink, when we're cleaning and stuff, that will go into there. Make sure these 3 tubes go inside. Make sure they do go in there, otherwise if they're not in there, ink's going to splash around everywhere. One note to make is you'll see here that it's got a battery and a cord here. So when this container has a fair amount of ink inside, it will then trigger that to say that and let out a loud shriek, which will tell us that this is getting full and it needs to be emptied. So that's a warning sign so this thing doesn't overflow. I'm going to put this back inside now. Probably got it the wrong way around. Okay, so that's pretty much that side. That's the only thing that you need to touch there. Everything else is just motor belts and drives. You don't need to touch any of those. Now I'm going to swing this around to the other side of the thingo, and basically that's just another door. Essentially, this side you don't need to touch. It's more so if something goes wrong or something goes wrong, but you do have access on this side where that Ethernet cord went. You'll see that we can see that Ethernet cord goes into there. So if you do need to change one, that's where we'll be changing it in the Ethernet board, in the board Ethernet cable straight in. So we'd unplug that, drop it through, and then put a new one or a shorter one or a longer one, whatever we needed. So that is the location for your Ethernet cord. We'll close that up, and we'll continue now back to the front. Now front, obviously we've got an emergency stop button. For whatever reason we need to emergency stop, it's going to be a hit of that button, and then to unrelease it or to release it, we turn it and it will pop back up. This is our control panel. Now we don't use the control panel that much. We actually more so use the software to do all the functionality on the control panel, but we can use the control panel, but just saying, we don't generally use it. We use the software to control everything on here, so it's not really used that much. Down the bottom here is our suction control and our heat settings. So we're going to quickly open up this cover. You'll see on here we have little holes there. When the media comes through, the suction here we can add and decrease the amount of suction, and that'll help the media stick to the platen so it doesn't lift and have a crash. So it's a good function to have a suction panel here. Then there's heat settings. We have front, middle, back, and also this front plate will also have a heat, which starts the heating process and the cooking process of the print once it's printed. So yeah, we have the heat control settings, which are controlled through there. Again, all these will be done in detail down the track as we get through it. You'll see here that we have two taped media guides. They sit on the edge of our media, undo the tape. They'll pull out and sit on each end of our media, and it stops our media from flicking up from the side. So they are really important as well to have, and to set them, again, we'll go through that in detail. Now we come into the more important parts of the machine. This is the headboard. This is the board that controls, there's basically there's a communication between the computer and the printer is all done basically through this headboard and through the main board which sits at the back. But this headboard is what attaches the print heads to the headboard or to the cards, which need to be attached that'll be one of our first things that we do. So headboard, very important part of the equation, and then we've also got the actual print head or the print carriage. You'll also see on here that we have got these devices either side of the print head or the print carriage, should we say. And these are anti-collision devices. So if for some reason that the film is puckering up, if it comes across, it immediately triggers these guides, which puts it into an emergency stop zone. Very important, rather than the machine keep going backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards and then ruining the print heads. So this is a really good feature to stop any sort of collision happening. Very important. Print carriage, board, and then we're now going to be into the first stage. The next video will now be in the first stage of our first installation process.